are live.
Wait, because I was gonna ask you guys if I should call you by your real names or your avatar
The
names.
avatars is easiest.
Okay. Is it though? Because
Yeah,
it's more syllables though.
I don't mind. You can either call me Matt or Second Harvest. I don't mind.
Okay. Okay, but so now you can tell us about how your file doesn't work.
When I try to export XBX FBX from Softimage, yeah, it just to be honest, I didn't even look at the errors because I looked through it so fast. I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. So I exported from Softimage. Actually, the file that I sent you earlier. Actually, I didn't send you a file, but the file that I showed you earlier with the little hexagonal floor thing that I mentioned.
So oh, go ahead.
And yeah, I got a lot of error messages, and I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. I'm not really gonna. I'm just gonna stick with what I know because I know that it works. So then I sent that over to 3ds Max, exported that using the traditional XSF, XMF, and that worked.
So
So FBX from Softimage did not work at all.
were you using the client version 534.2?
I'm using the most recent client, yeah.
From the IMVU
I always do update.
from the download page.
I am not sure. I did get a little pop-up thing asking me to update because FBX works better. So I thought, right, well, I planned on giving FBX a go. So I actually did the update.
Oh, because on the download page, we actually have there's a newer update. It's just, for whatever reason, it's harder to make a build that you push live to people. And so the one on the download page is always more recent by, well, right now by quite a bit, I think.
Yeah,
okay.
I've just put the web browser URL on screen, so it's so it's imvu.com/download.php, and that's the latest build for Windows installer and Mac installer.
Yeah, and I guarantee you it's more recent than what you get when you're just prompted from the client.
Yeah, if you've updated just using the normal pathway using the client updater, it's 534.0. which is shown on the download page, but the one with the updated FBX stuff is 0.2. So it's worth trying that just to double check to make sure that it's not a... Because obviously FBX support is a work in progress. It's a lot of the stuff... I mean, it's probably less so with Macs because that's more... it has better traditional support with IMVU for obvious reasons. But with Blender, the animation is still a bit iffy just because of some of the things that does when it exports to FBX. So it's definitely worth updating to the very, very, very latest bleeding edge version.
I would definitely give it a go because, to be honest, the only reason that I use 3ds Max is for the biped, so I could do the animation.
Yes.
Everything else I generally do use XSI, Softimage, because I just find it a lot easier to model with. It's well, even though it's actually discontinued now, but
yes,
in my opinion, it's still the best modeling package. Yeah, I'll definitely give that a go.
If people want to get it now, is it something they can still get?
No. It's not available anymore, is it?
No, I don't think they even do it.
No,
I don't think they'll sell it anymore.
They because it was bought out by Discrete and they canned it in favor of 3D Studio Max and Maya.
Oh, so
which is such a shame because it was like an industry.
Oh yeah. It's particularly for special effects and stuff like that. That's where it had a real hold.
But do you think there are other people using it? I'm just trying to figure out if it's worth getting an engineer to take a look at why it's not working for you. But if you're the only person on the planet using this for IMVU, and nobody
I
can get
would
the
say
software.
no. I would say no. To be honest, I mean, I've found a happy workaround that I can just export even an FBX into 3ds Max and do it from there. So generally, people who use XSI for IMVU have had to use 3ds Max anyway. So they've already got 3ds Max. You know, it's not really. I don't think it's worth trying to get an engineer out just to support it for XSI only.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be hard to get one because they'd be really interested in the problem. But, yeah.
Well, there
Well,
aren't.
I'll try.
How
I'll
many
try
how many
and
XSI users would you say there are?
That's it. Yeah, I don't know anyone else that's still using it. So I'm just bitter because I've been using it for 17 years or something like that since it came out, and I know it intimately.
Did you write them a letter?
Who am I going to write to?
I don't know, just Autodesk.
Dear Autodesk, please don't kill Softimage. We love it.
Yeah. Well, we did have an engineer at IMVU earlier this year who used to work for Autodesk. And I guess that wouldn't help too much, though. Like, he used to work there. But...
Yeah, it's probably a good idea not to say too much about that.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying he used to work at Autodesk.
Yes.
He doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe he would have had some insight, some reason. Because sometimes things are, turned off or not supported anymore because they have some kind of fatal flaw or something like that, right? But they don't want to tell you, oh, it's really flawed, so they just quietly do it.
Well, you couldn't really make that argument with XSI because it still is, I suppose, because it's still functional, it still works, and
it was they were making movies like Avatar and things like that. With
that was pretty recent. Really.
Yeah, so you could get conspiratorial about the reasons why, but it's probably not a good idea to get into.
How about if we all write them a letter? Well, I've been to their offices before. I could go back to their offices. They have like
point a finger.
Start a petition. I mean, you can. I don't know.
I'm gonna go all Michael Moore on them.
That's probably not a good.
I don't know. But
yeah,
it's probably not relevant for getting the FPS for IMVU. So
I mean, like there's at least one person who uses this. So if you could just bring it back.
Bring it back. I'm probably quite quiet for everyone because I'm using my laptop and I'm having to shout across my screen. So.
It is very.
But I can hear everybody okay.
Right. Okay.
Oh. Yeah, you know how people always talk louder when they're talking into a telephone?
Yes.
You should definitely do that in this case.
I'll just move a little closer. Is that any better?
Oh, that's much better.
There you go. I just moved a little closer.
No, it's obviously it's just tricky because the streamer has control of their audio that's going out, but not so much coming in. So I can't balance I can't balance you and Jinxie relative to the audio.
Oh, am I too loud?
No, it's well, we're okay. It's just Second Harvest is relatively low compared to us, so it's because there isn't a proper sound desk.
It's just funny. People are always telling me to speak up. So like, if you think I'm loud, it's
no, it's perfectly fine.
Unique situation for me. Oops. Keep hitting this lamp.
So when you're using XSI. So you're importing the avatar dummy meshes and then using those as your template, essentially, around which you then make your product, whatever it is.
Yeah, the only thing that I import into XSI that I got from IMVU is an OBJ of the actual female body, if you like, for scale, or if I want to make a new head, for instance, I'll start with I have started with the IMVU head, and obviously manipulated the vertices to create something unique. So I don't actually use the bone structure, or I can't skin it. I can't use any of that at the moment. It would be nice because XSI does have some nice skinning tools, although the new voxel skinning in 2016 is very nice in 3ds Max. But yeah, I generally just sort of import geometry, and I'll use that as a reference, my starting point for making something that fits around it, and then export that back into 3ds Max.
And you do that via, you're exporting as an object file from XSI or something else?
I have traditionally, because for a long time I used 3ds Max 9 because it did everything that I needed to, and it was solid. It didn't crash. It wasn't as CPU intensive as some of the new ones are. So, and actually, the Cal 3D exporters actually work really well. The 2014 Cal 3D exporters are pretty poor, to be honest.
So how do you? So when you're exporting from XSI, it's keeping all the vertex weighting data and the textures and the UV maps. It's exporting a complete OBJ file.
Yeah, it actually does a really good job, as long as you tweak your settings and tell it not to triangulate.
Yeah.
You can definitely just turn on polygons, and then it will be able to manage any of the topology that you throw at it, that you've got inside of XSI. It won't obviously do things like your smooth groups, and there's something inside of XSI. So for instance, I can press the plus key on my keyboard, and it'll act like a turbo smooth inside of 3ds Max. So I can incrementally increase the polygons, positive and minus, so I can jump back, and it makes it easier to model. But it doesn't do that. It won't transport that as an OBJ. So if I want to do that, then obviously it just sort of exports it just as the regular mesh, and then I've got to drop a turbo smooth inside of Max to get the same effect.
Right. So you can't. I mean, I suppose because it's you could do it destructively and force vertex splits in the mesh, and then export that, and you'd have you smoothing, but you wouldn't have smoothing via smooth groups. You'd have a destructive split in the mesh.
But generally, if I use smooth groups, I set everything to 1 anyway.
Right.
So it's not a massive issue.
Interesting. So then once you've got your object file into 3D Studio Max, depending on what it is that you're building for IMVU, you're then using whatever the template sample starter files are available to then reconstruct your product.
Generally, yeah. If I'm making something like a head, for instance, or I don't think people really use the IMVU body to start and make body shapes. I mean, we used to. When I first started, we would just sort of make changes to the IMVU body, larger breasts, buttocks, and all the rest of it, just by using the FFD, even inside of XS 3ds Max, and acting near enough like a cage just to pull the shape out. But not so much now. For me, it's just an OBJ that gives me the reference points, and then I can build on and make something unique.
So here's a question for you then. So when you look at the avatars that we used when we first started out, they were very much the cartoony style stuff. You know, ones with the bobbleheads, as everyone seems to be calling them for some peculiar reason.
Which I quite like still.
Yes, yeah, same here. I have absolutely no problem with a big head, bobblehead. But
Yep.
because you do clothing as well, don't you?
I have done in the past, but it's so fiddly now and so very competitive.
So
and it's so time consuming is the biggest thing.
yes. So how do you? Because one of the questions that I can't figure out is that when you build your clothing relative to the avatars, based on those cartoon versions, those aren't the avatars that people use anymore.
No.
So what I've always wondered is, where are people getting the, you know, how do you make clothes for avatars for which you don't have access to a template? You know, because you can't download the, you know, the new lifestyle style avatars anywhere.
I think what I tried to do, and there was some efforts for people making new, what they class as mesh bodies, and I made one. And what a mesh body is a total breakaway from the IMVU body shape, as well as a breakaway from the IMVU UVs. So you can get something, if you like, how IMVU should have started, like with this nice new shape, and with templates that actually make some sense, because I'm sure everybody knows that the IMVU templates are not the best. In some instances, everybody hates the neck. It doesn't actually line up seamlessly.
Yeah,
or
that's a vertex weighting issue. Yeah.
Sides. So I think you just have to use a little bit of artistic license now and just kind of say, right, okay, I'm going to try and match the parts that meet. So that's kind of like where the hips might meet the torso, and where the neck joins, and also where the wrists join, if you're making like a top. If you're making kind of a whole bodysuit, which people are doing now, making new body shapes, then it seems to be you can basically do whatever you want. You don't really have to rely so much on the IMVU topology so much, as long as you make your mesh to match the IMVU UVs, so that the skin looks good. Because when you use the skin, I can't remember actually. It's been so long since I did any skins that I can't remember the actual tick box for use the skin. I can't remember what it's called, but there's like a little tick box where you say, I want to use the IMVU skin and not a texture.
Right.
But yeah, as long as you match your mesh so that it doesn't disfigure the skin, then you're fine. You can make whatever you want. And people are doing like lovely, sexy carves, whereas the IMVU cards look like I don't know, a cornflake packet, or you know,
so,
just something very boxy.
Quick interjection there then. So when you say skin, you're talking about the 3D Studio Max skin modifier.
Sorry, no, I'm talking about the skin textures that people throw out.
Right. No, just
so it basically doesn't use a texture anymore. You don't need to provide it a texture, because it's going to use any skin that you're wearing.
Right.
So you basically have to match the UVs to match the IMVU UVs, and therefore you can change whatever geometry you want. and the UVs will actually match, and the skin will look good.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean I I don't do avatar
Yeah,
stuff generally.
clothing is clothing and body shapes and all the rest. It's there's a few people that are doing it and they're doing it really well, and I thought, well, I probably can do something quite nice, but it just takes so long.
Yeah.
It's a niche market, but yeah, it's good luck to the people that are doing it, because it is, next to making heads, it's one of the hardest things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about just making clothing, so you're talking about a shirt, a top, even just a mesh replacement, from within Blender, that's relatively straightforward to do, because all you're doing is effectively creating your mesh and then weighting that with vertex groups or vertex painting, depending, or weight painting, however you want to describe it, relative to the avatar, and that's all you need to do. So, I mean, as Polly mentioned above in the comments, because she's not joining chat, hint, hint, she said everything is still the same base avatar. Skeleton is the same, the seams are the same. So when you are making, so it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, providing you don't go completely crazy, as long as the positions of the mesh are relative to what you want to see in IMVU, when you're making it, it appears the same way regardless or relative to the avatar shape that the individual has on their avatar.
I think the complication with clothing is getting it to so you can skin it correctly, so that it's not sort of poking through in certain positions. So you
Yeah.
have to go through and you have to run a test animation on your avatar and put it into extreme positions,
Yes.
just so you can see if the clothing that you're making is actually going to fall apart or pinch through the buttocks, or just generally turn into a spaghetti bird's nest.
Well, that's the bit I couldn't understand. Let me just bring up
the comment that Polly's making about Cal 3D is you can't actually turn off some of the bones when you export for animation. If you try and see, what I like to do is I'll just say, right, okay, I'm going to make a waving animation. I just want to wave with the arm. So I'll turn everything off but the arm. But as soon as I do that, it crashes max at the moment. So that definitely.
Yes. Code Rodent, the chappie that's doing the FBX stuff. That was one of the things he was playing with, where when we were doing the Blender testing, you were basically exporting a complete pose. So even if you were just making the arm wave, like you were just saying, you would still have to export the entire thing, because it would do what you just said. If you tried to export just the arm, it would crash, it would break when you imported it. But he was working on something that allowed you to do that. I don't know what the status of that is, but that would have been, or that is, pretty useful, just to be able to export certain elements.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you can set that up on a loop. You can you can just sort of loop that animation. You can average that animation so that so you can offset the arm if you want. Interesting though, there's a really quick, and well, it's not actually quick, but there's a dirty hack that you can just do. If you open up the XAF in Notepad, you can just edit that, because it's just a text document. You can't obviously do that with your XBF. FBX exporter because it's all in. But
Yeah.
if you're using the old XAF, then that's just a text document, and you can just
Edit.
delete.
Yeah.
Yeah, edit, and resave out the bits that you don't really want. So you're going to save yourself some kilobytes. It's
Yeah.
horrible, but it works.
Yeah. No, well, this is I mean, I've got the Blender clothing dummy on screen, and this is the bit that I've. If you were making clothes relative to the cartoon avatar as is provided by IMVU, I don't see a problem with that in terms of, so long as you've got your mesh relative to the avatar, everything should work out, barring the testing and all that sort of stuff to eliminate the pinching like you were saying. But with these new avatars, all the proportions are changed. And so if you make, I mean, this is specific to Blender rather than 3D Studio Max, but the same thing might apply. I don't know. But if you make a shirt for the avatar using the dummy as provided, when you get that into IMVU, that's the bit I don't quite follow, is that wouldn't that then appear on the avatar as you've designed it and exported it relative to the bobblehead avatar?
Well, everybody should be doing that. I think what people are doing, not necessarily trying to corner the market, but what they're doing is they're making shapes that you basically have to rely on clothing that they make to fit for that shape.
Right.
So, and that's why I didn't really want to get into clothing anymore, because there's that many. I mean, how many bodysuits exist in IMVU? There must be 10,000 bodysuits. So it seemed to be kind of, yes, you can make something and stay faithful to the IMVU body shape, but since nobody's using that anymore, it just seems to be, we're kind of in the realms of like necklaces. If you look at necklaces, they generally float 2 or 3 inches above the body.
Yeah.
Because people are so scared of clipping with these new bodies that they'll just sort of play it safe and make them float above. So,
well,
I guess there's an element of that with clothing.
Yeah, that's the aha, he says, pointing at Polly Smell's comment, because Polly was just saying in the comments that a lot of proportions are due to scalars, not the avatar or clothing. Right? So, yeah, I get that. Whoops. I get that. But then if it were just scalars, would you necessarily have the problem that you've just described, where you've got the necklaces standing proud of the surface, not just because people are afraid of clipping, but is that an indirect consequence of scalars not being not influencing the necklaces, or is that the mesh hasn't been made specific to fit that particular body shape, absent scalars?
So the way scalars work is you'll basically scale that bone. That's all scalars do.
Right.
So if you set something up inside of however you're making your clothing or whatever, it shouldn't actually make any difference. If you're using the scalar, then that's how they work. They work relative to the scale of that bone. So if you make the clothing to fit, and it's matching perfect at a scale of 1, then there's nothing to say that it won't match perfectly if you scale that bone to 0.5. So that's how heads work.
Right.
Basically, your heads. Scalars originated from heads. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Kit Kat, and she realized that heads, the way that heads work, she could actually make bodies that were a little bit smaller in exactly the same way. And it's just scaling bones. That's all it is. So it will scale relative to however you've set it up. Everybody should be meshing in relation to the IMVU body shape, but as you've said, people are just sort of making custom shapes, and
Right.
then we get
So
complications.
right. Yeah. So that I mean I asked Jinxie this. I can't remember if I asked it on stream or not, but that was that's the thing that was confusing me, in the sense of the avatar sample files that we get are the old bobbleheads. But if you sign up to IMVU now, if you create a new account, you don't get the bobblehead. You get the new I call them lifestyle avatars, because they're much more realistic. You know, Kim Kardashian, David Beckham type stuff. But we can't make specific stuff for those avatars because we don't have access to that body shape. I mean, this is absent all the scalers, so somebody's made those avatar meshes for the avatars, but we don't have access to them. Or am I missing something completely?
No, I think you're quite right. And what IMVU should do is what they did with the heads, and they should release them so that we have. See, when I first, well, not when I first started, but early on in my creating things, I made something that I thought was seamless lips. Now, I made seamless lips by using the IMVU head, and I extracted the lips, and I used a push operator,
right,
which generally just sort of moves it away by 0.1, if you like. So it was hardly noticeable, if you like. And the problem that I found was, after I'd made these 35 different shapes using a morph to match perfectly for the IMVU head, was that it still clipped. And I pulled my hair out. I spent about 2 months trying to fix this problem. And then I contacted Matt, who was working there at the time, and he said, "Oh, actually, there's 75 different shapes. We just didn't realize, and we just didn't want to intimidate people. So we didn't release all of the body shapes. So you're actually missing, I was missing half of the shapes. So I'd spent a couple of weeks or whatever it was making these lips that would fit perfectly."
Right.
So yes, IMVU definitely should. If people are using those shapes in Next, then IMVU should release those shapes, and we can make something that fits perfectly to that.
Yeah, that's one for you, Jinxie. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, over to you, Jinx.
Who has been suspiciously silent this whole time.
I think she's.
I've been chatting away in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Are you not?
Oh yes, we can see that.
And I put myself on mute in case I I don't know, breathe really loud or something. I don't know.
That's all right.
Or if my cat is making his baby lamb sounds.
That's perfectly fine. Are you sure it's a cat? Yeah, that's a cat.
Well. It could be a persona. I don't know.
My cat persona, the obnoxious cat that always thinks it's dinner time persona. And now I don't know. What was your question? I don't know.
You mean you haven't been listening?
For shame.
So we were discussing the new heads that IMVU should definitely release the shapes of, much like they release the shapes for the IMVU heads. These new heads.
The IMVU Plus heads that they released, when did those come out? Like a year and a half ago or something? Is that when they came out?
It's been a while, yes. It's been a while.
And we never made those files available.
Well, I've never used them because I made custom mesh heads. So.
By the way, do you say IMVU or IMVU?
I say IMVU. Are you asking me?
Well, what about you, Second Harvest?
Yeah, I always say I've had this conversation before with IMVU staff, and yeah, I always say IMVU,
IMVU.
as in IMVU.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
have you seen that video that has Matt and Brett in it?
Yes, and they have that discussion about which is correct.
And it doesn't answer anything.
No, it doesn't
right?
answer anything, no.
Okay, this is the wrong notebook, but I'm going to write it down about the MV Plus heads.
Polysmell says, oh, this is polystyrene, the sizing of heads is still the same. When people make head accessories, it's all based on the default bobblehead. Noses and lips, etc. will be different in all heads, but the general shape size is the same. The scale is changed in create mode.
That's good to know. So you can actually make, if you're making glasses, what you do is you generally make them to fit the bridge of the nose, and then go up to the ears, and then they should work on the new heads. I think that's what Polly's saying.
So, maybe I'm getting confused because obviously I'm Blender perspective, so we don't have the same sort of tools and modifiers that are assigned to the default avatars when you open them in Max. So, you know, if you're fiddling with things in Max, you can kind of guarantee that whatever you do is going to work within IMVU because of, you know, IMVU being Mac-centric. So, you know, I mean, that's why I had to clarify when you were talking about skin modifiers, skins, whether you meant the skin modifier in Max or whether you meant, which is what you actually meant, was the skins in IMVU, because the two, they don't correlate language, you know, in terms of language and in terms of what it is that you're actually talking about. So a skin modifier in Max is not the same as the skin modifier in IMVU.
But it should do, yeah, I see what you mean, yeah.
Because, I mean, this was one of the things that's always quite sort of confusing for users when they're using Blender and obviously non-Max things. But
surely inside of Blender it's still called a skin modifier.
No? I don't know. There isn't a skin modifier in terms of, you know, what that does in Max. It's just vertexes and weight painting, but a skin modifier in Max isn't the same as just vertex paints and weight painting, is it? Or is it?
A skin, well, it depends. You can paint weights in Max, but we also have the ability to type in physical numbers. So
that's weight painting essentially. So you can either paint the values or you can type them in, or essentially you're assigning an influence, a bone influence value to a particular element of a mesh.
There's various tools. I mean, it is quite nice. You can kind of blend. You can select vertices, and you can select a different bone. If something is kind of all hinky and all crinkled, then you can just use a wide brush, and you can press blend, and it will blend across to smooth out the nearing vertices in regards to whatever bone that you've got selected. But the new 2016 voxel skin tool is very powerful. If anybody's listening that uses the 2016, they need to upgrade it to, I can't remember the proper name for it. It's something 1. It's not an SP1, but it's something 1, and basically that allows you to use the voxel paint tool. You can find tutorials on YouTube, but it's very powerful. It's just mostly automatic. It will give you 80% of the work automatically using the new 2016
Mm.
But yeah, I'm sure you have similar tools in Blender. I mean,
Yeah,
the whole
it's
process,
the
the
Polly's
process is the same thing, I
yeah,
guess.
and I mean Polly just said in comments it's the same thing, I suppose, just done in a different way,
Mm.
weighting the mesh to the skeleton.
Hmm.
Right. So I mean in Blender, that is literally all you are doing. You are just weighting the mesh to the skeleton. There's no well, there are weight maps, but you don't access them in the same way that you might do in Max. So from a translating the Blender or non-Max stuff to Max, that's the confusion, in the sense that it's just a terminology thing, I guess, in the sense that when somebody says skin, they're basically talking about the overall weighting or mapping of the vertices meshes to the
Mm.
underlying skeleton.
See, these are good transferable skills to have, because basically, Maya is going to have its own skill,
Yeah,
skinning
yeah,
modifier, and once you can do it in one, then near enough the much of a muchness, and they're all going to be very similar, or you're going to be able to work them out. So
yeah,
even though you've probably never used 3ds Max, or you might not have used Max or whatever, and I have never used Blender, I'm sure we can muddle through it with a bit of a reference tutorial.
yes. I mean,
And
in
they
relation
all
to,
do the same.
yeah, I mean, in relation to the FBX stuff, you can see why, that although a lot of the comments are why aren't this done right now? Why isn't this done? Why isn't this available? You can understand the complications of what we've just been talking about. That is, they need to make sure that a skin in Max means or produces the same thing as it would do if it was you're exporting something from Blender, from SketchUp, from DAZ 3D or whatever it is, because they all, although they all do the same fundamental thing, there may be slight tweaks to the way that they do it, just because they're proprietary, whatever it is, the doohickeys that they have.
But if you want to get a feel for actually what how skin works, then all you have to do is export an XMF file and have a look at it yourself. You can see it. It basically says these vertices are connected to these bones, and it has this influence. So it's telling you, for this vertices, how much of an influence this bone has to it, and that's all skinning is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no
It's
great art to it.
yeah.
It,
Yeah. That's that. In that's
it's how you manipulate it
yeah.
is the key.
Yeah.
And some things are better at doing it than others. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that in Blender is just just weight painting or your vertex painting, or you just as Polly said, you're just weighting the mesh to a skeleton. There's no specific thing in Blender that does that in the same sense that there is with Max. So I guess that's where the confusion comes in, because when you read through a lot of comments and the tutorials, they mention skinning, but they don't contextualize that within the the act of what is it that skinning actually is. When you say skin, there's no clarity in terms of, well, this actually means doing this.
I guess it in terms of the way that they're using it is, you can think of your own skin.
Yes.
And how it sticks to. I mean, obviously, when I move my wrist, then the skin at my chin is not really influenced by anything, because
Yes.
it's connected to my wrist. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to go back to the clothing thing then. So as long as you are making the mesh relative to the default avatar, anything that you output clothing wise is just going to fit anyway, because they're still using, regardless of the outward appearance, they're all still essentially using the same underlying skeleton.
That should be true.
In theory,
If
yes.
everybody, in theory, everybody should have been making shapes that fit closely to the IMVU body shape. But I mean, it's like everything. We've evolved.
Yeah.
It's been going for. I've been doing it for 10 years, and I've noticed that things have changed.
Yeah.
There's a trend towards much more realism now.
Yeah.
So people have been experimenting with new and interesting curves, and I guess that's going to continue.
So to answer the problem, then the issue that with the avatars is that we don't have access to those specific, not the IMVU ones, but the other ones that you were talking about, where other creators have actually created their own unique body shapes, and it's those that they then use as a basis to create clothing that specifically fits those body meshes.
Yeah. So.
And of course, because we don't have access to those, so.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I remember making some boots to fit somebody requested me to make some boots to fit a body shape that I had no control over.
Yeah.
It was somebody else's. So it's just trial and error. You just basically what I did was I used some boots that I'd already made that fit the IMVU body, and I used inside of 3ds Max there's a modifier called FFD. And it works like a cage. It basically gives you a very cut down version of the geometry, and you can then use the extreme positions of like the very top and the very bottom, and you can pull out little corners of it, and it'll affect it gradually, so you get like a smooth blend across the points that you're moving.
Yeah.
And it was just trial and error. That's all I had to do was just trial and error to say, right, okay, am I still clipping the leg? So that's how I think people are going to have to make clothing to fit these new body shapes that are appearing. Because there's no way that anybody who's made those bodies is ever going to give anybody else those bodies and say, right, I authorize you to make some clothing.
Yeah. That's just not going to happen. Yeah.
It's very rare.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you're asking for trouble if you do that.
Well, basically, I mean, you're giving them. You're giving them the. I have actually given Polly, the custom shape that I made, and said, if you want to make some clothing, then this is the shape, and you can sort of use that to. But I wouldn't release it to general public. I wouldn't sort of say, right, because we all know there is sort of piracy and people that will take advantage. So you just have to be a little savvy.
Yeah, that's one of the sort of the issues with the tutorial stuff. When you create sample files, you have to do it in such a way that you know that a certain percentage of people are just gonna, because it's free. So why not?
Yeah. I mean, in some respects, it's the same as taking the IMVU head and changing the nose a little bit. That's what it was like when I first started. So many people were just sort of rescaling the heads, and then all of a sudden there was this status that you get to be a grandmaster creator because you've made a new head.
Yeah.
But all they were doing was near enough pulling out a few vertices.
Yeah.
There was I think there was about 3 people that I would really class as grandmaster because they made heads back in the day.
Yeah, actual proper heads. Yeah.
Yeah, actual proper heads, and not just sort of heads that people were using IMVU for, and just pulling a few vertices and saying, "I've made a head." So it's the same principle. Yes, IMVU do release these files now and again. And everybody makes their own versions from it and calls it their own. So that would happen if somebody made a custom shape and released it. It would get abused, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, reshaping, making derivatives in the proper sense of the word, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem so much as the what is it? The ZDCs, the zero change derivations.
Zero derivation. Yeah. I don't actually have a problem with that myself personally. You know, it used to push my nose out that people would even use my icons and just derive things and not change anything. But at the end of the day, if I'm still in the derived chain, I don't really care. I know myself that they're not really going to get many sales, because I think some people are quite smart and they'll just say, before IMVU released the little link that said this is derived from this product,
Yeah.
it used to be a problem, but now not so much, because people are smart enough to kind of say, right, let's see where this was derived from and see if I can get it a little bit cheaper. So I don't have a problem with zero derived changes anymore, as long as I'm in the chain.
Yeah, Jinxy just said in chat, for some reason in chat and not on voice, Prim taught me that often what you might say is a ZCD head is actually a slightly different size with custom lashes.
Mm-hmm.
Those ZCD people are sometimes amazing marketeers.
And there is a lot of there is people. I got over it because I realized that I'm not very good at the marketing side of it. So if somebody wants to then flood the market with my meshes that's exactly the same as what I put out, then good luck to them, because it does mean no harm as long as I'm in the chain. No problem at all.
Yeah.
Use my icons. I don't care. I mean, I know a lot of people are, and they'll call people out as thieves on Facebook. But personally, it takes too long to file DMCAs for people that are just stolen your icon.
Yeah, you see, that's yeah, because in principle you should act on it just for the principle element of it, because obviously if you don't, then you set a precedent, if you like, of not necessarily caring too much. That's how that can be interpreted. But yes, you're quite right that one or two DMCAs or takedown notices or whatever you want to call them, issuing one or two is fine. But when you've got dozens and dozens and dozens, and they're not always in jurisdictions that you can rely on, then it kind of gets, you get caught between a rock and a hard place.
Generally, if I've had to deal with anything like that, I just send them a polite message and just kind of say, look, you've stolen my stuff. Every time that I've done that, it's been taken down, so it's far quicker for me to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sort of saying that works for everybody, but for me, it has worked, and I don't have to follow it up.
Yeah, as Jinxy just in comments, it's the people who are actually stealing and re-uploading stuff, cutting you out of the chain, you should spend a lot of energy on. And,
absolutely.
And that I think is where a lot of people, it's not that they go wrong, but that's where a lot of people, they go hell to the leather because somebody's nicked an icon.
And there is the new tools I haven't actually had to use for a while, but IMVU introduced tools so that it would troll through the catalog and actually tell you whether your mesh has been stolen.
Yeah.
And that's very useful. I don't know if someone wants to link that. I don't have it by hand.
I don't have it to hand.
I'm sure Jinx will find it.
Yeah.
But that is quite useful. And it actually goes through and it tells you okay, this is suspected and this is definitely taken. So, but generally, I don't know that I'm popular enough to have things stolen every week. I've been pretty good over the years. I've probably filed about 20 DMCAs. So,
Yeah, yeah. He says, knock on wood.
well,
Yeah, yeah. That's
that's a sign of success, though. If somebody's stealing from you, then you're doing something good.
yeah, yeah. Although that's not an endorsement, obviously.
Hmm. Yeah.
No,
Yes, this message is brought
it's.
to you by.
I mean, that's the obviously that's the other element of being a creator, is that you're not just making stuff. The successful ones, the really successful ones, are the ones that they're heavily into the marketing, and that's where that's where. Well, I would suggest that they are more interested in marketing and the business aspect of being a creator than they are the creator aspect of being a creator.
I've actually known creators that I'm not going to call out names or
No,
whatever, but
yeah,
but but um, but I've been very good at marketing, and has required very little in the way of creativity.
yeah,
But they've done very well for themselves because they know how to market.
yeah,
And some of them have made me, they've done quite well for me because I've been fortunate enough that they've used some of my things. So, once again, I don't have a problem with that. If you want to come and have a look and do your best marketing job, then yeah, go for it.
yeah,
And more power to them.
yeah. Because as long as you're kept in the derivation chain, then it doesn't matter so much.
But for me, IMVU has always been just about the joy of being able to make whatever that I can imagine. That's what's kept me in place. Yes, I could have moved on. I do have an account on another website, which I won't mention, um, and I have been able to reallocate some of my assets once or
Second
twice.
Life.
Well, it could be, yeah. I haven't used it that much, but because of the nature of geometry and all the rest of it inside of this 3D world, it is all reusable. I mean, I could have thrown out things that I've made to 20 or whatever different sites, But as I said, the joy that I get is, yes, I know the package intimately. I know exactly what's expected of me, and yeah, you just sort of get on with it and enjoy what you're doing, and then I find that it comes easy.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously there was before IMVU there was another one around the same time. There was Google's Lively.
Yeah, I did sign up for that, but it never really took off.
Never got off the ground. Well, they kiboshed it basically. I mean, it did seem to have a growing interest, and people were quite happy with what you could do with it in the early days. But Google kiboshed it for whatever reason. But yes, Second Life. That was tricky because of the use of the prims stuff. Which is a thing of itself. But I understand that they now use meshes in the same way that just about everybody else does. So they've kind of moved away from the prims and moved towards a more traditional content system, which makes it theoretically easier for more people to get involved with. And it fits into what you were saying, where you're able to then just theoretically port stuff from one world to another. But I don't know too much about Second Life myself.
No, I as I said, I've a few items there, but I wouldn't really say that I maintain it. Whatever happened to that Unity thing that IMVU was making approaches to? Do you remember that?
Yeah, Jinx will have to come in on that one. Hint, hint.
I think she's playing with her cat.
I'm really bad at unmuting my thing. I always click the little picture of the microphone instead of the text that says mute or unmute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I don't totally know what happened with Unity, but basically they had made a couple games, like some kind of zombie game and some other game, and they just didn't nobody wanted to play them. They just didn't perform well. They weren't like IMVU kind of games. And then I don't know, somebody just decided, forget it, we don't want to do that. We're busy doing other stuff. We need our engineering resources somewhere else. And they pulled everyone off the project. But like it wasn't like a big success, and then they pulled everyone off. It's like nobody wanted to play these games, and they maybe, I don't know if they weren't working right. Yeah, I don't know. Like a year and a half ago, I talked to Todd Porter when I found out IMVU is down the street, like 2 blocks down the street from where I live. And I started stalking all the IMVU employees. I had lunch with Todd Porter, and he was telling me about how all these amazing things that were going to come to IMVU that were all based on Unity. And yeah, so it's I don't know what happened.
But the Unity engine is really nice. It's got things like normal mapping, and you know, it's got a lot.
I think the thing is that, you know, IMVU really wants to focus on mobile. Not that, I mean, the client is very important. So don't think that IMVU wants to become only mobile or something. Like, but to get new users, the best way is mobile. And then to get them to stick around, you show them all the rich content that's in the client. And so both of those things are important, but mobile really needs to be built up a lot more. And so that's where all the resources are going. And plus, nobody wanted to play the zombie game. So I think if they would have come up with a game about kittens or something, it may have been totally different.
Yeah, 2020 hindsight.
Well, yeah. Or the new iPhone X emoji thing. Have you seen that cat thing? It basically tracks your face. Yeah, you can either be a dog or a cat or whatever. The iPhone X, there's a new app. I can't remember what it's called. Emoticon, something like that. But it basically real time tracks your face, so you're talking as a dog or a cat, and it's amazing. It's
so
have a look on
so IMVU avatar is your video profile when you talk to people. Yeah. Can
you imagine that? I mean, that's probably a future thing for IMVU, if you can get it to capture
motion tracking. Yeah.
I mean, I did toy with the idea of making one of the mesh heads that I make, so that it had phonemes, so I could actually make it, you know, say
Speak.
I love you,
yeah,
happy birthday, all of that jazz. Yeah. So all of the phonemes.
But we did have WithMoji as a standalone app. So that was kind of like that. So you could send WithMoji that use your avatar to other people that you're chatting with. And I don't even think they had to have the WithMoji app. It's just you would be able to send it.
That makes sense, but the the step from that is using your camera to track your face to make it do the expressions that you want.
But
I
I
mean,
think
there's something similar from the new character studio animator. I can't remember who makes it. 1 second, let me have a look on my desktop.
but I
Yeah,
think the thing is,
Adobe After Effects has got something very similar.
but the people don't, I don't know that IMVU users really want to, just have a face that's talking at you. It's like you can be doing IMVU things, and then if you had voice chat, that would be great, but nobody really needs to just see a face talking. Like, people aren't maybe face chatting, they just want audio.
Well, I mean, there are little programs that you can download for when you're doing video, video calls or whatever. You can talk as a cat or a dragon or a toad or whatever it is. That being able to talk or have your avatar appear as your IMVU avatar would be I don't know whether it would be popular in the sense that the justification for doing something like that, but that's I think what so it's not something that you would necessarily do within IMVU. It's something that you could use IMVU for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could make a mobile app that uses, well, with the similar to what you were on about earlier on, that Mobi thing. And yes, it could sort of talk out what you were saying, but I think we're not really there yet.
But
To be honest though, there's no reason why you couldn't do that right now. I could make a head that has all of the phonemes, and IMVU could write something that uses existing software that sort of the sounds that I'm making and creates the voice from it. But yeah.
But I still think, I mean, even with YouTube, like, people don't watch, they play YouTube videos as much as they used to, but they don't watch them as much. Like, people aren't, like, they're off doing something else and just listening to the audio and things like that. Like, people don't want to devote so much attention that they're just looking at a head talking or whatever. Like, that's like a very short novelty value.
But I think if I sent something like a greeting, like happy birthday or something like that, which IMVU is great for with the Moji and all the rest of it, that's a big thing you run about. Mobile is where the future. Then something like that could well be quite a nice development.
Well, yeah, if you think about
personalized message.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about all the YouTube videos of people talking about current affairs, and they're using static pictures, or some of them are using these animal avatar replacements. So they're obviously sat in front of their laptops or their computers with a camera that's able to track the face, which then converts that to whatever it is that they are using as their avatar. So whether that's the toad or the dragon or a dog. If that were an IMVU avatar, I mean, it's not a question. I mean, because there's a market in of itself, in the sense that if it were just, if you could do that, could you then set it up so that instead of it just being like with those particular programs, all you have is a dog, a toad, a dragon. That's it. But with the way that IMVU is set up, if you use the IMVU avatar, it wouldn't just be the default avatar. You could, however it would be done, perhaps you could do it in a way where you're using a customized, as in your avatar. It picks up all the accessories, the hair, the head shape, the upper torso. I guess if it shows, from the neck upwards, you could do all sorts of stuff with that. So it wouldn't be just an avatar; it would be your avatar that you would be, which takes it not just one step. It's kind of a jump and a leap and a jump ahead of the other avatar replacement programs, which just rely on very primitive options in terms of what it is that they provide you. So your dog may wear a hat or may wear glasses, and that's about it. But with an IMVU replacement, you would have your avatar as it appears in IMVU, which would be interesting.
Well, I agree. It's far more powerful than just a cat. I mean, don't get me wrong. The cat and the dog and the chicken or whatever it is you can be is very nice.
Yeah.
And maybe IMVU is not there yet, but
get on it, Jinxie.
It's the future.
Yeah.
We're being futuristic.
Being a dog and a toad is the future. That's what I just got from that conversation.
No. The opposite.
Toads are the future.
Polly's going. Bye, Polly.
Talking toads. Bye, Polly.
See ya.
Good luck with your election.
Do we know who she's voting for?
I don't even know who's running. Not my country.
Let's not get political.
Yeah. Not in this current environment.
Probably a good idea not to get political.
Although...
Is Green somebody's last name, or is that the Green Party? It's probably the Green Party. But that is a common last name.
I imagine, knowing Polly, it'll be the Potato Party.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, the
Free
potato
the potatoes.
Party. Go potatoes.
Potatoes for everyone.
Tater Party. Well, here in America, we say taters.
Well, somebody's got to be wrong.
Are you questioning my English?
You mean you're American?
Well, since
my American English.
Since it was it the English that brought the potato back?
Oh, I don't know.
From the American? No, I think it was the French that. No, wait. I think this maybe the Spanish.
You're thinking of fries or frites or whatever.
No. Like in France, they had to like trick people. Like nobody wanted to eat potatoes. They had to kind of trick them into doing it.
I remember that. Yeah.
The people who really adopted potatoes were the Irish, as we know, famine and everything. But there were like the royalty or somebody were growing potatoes and like made a big fuss over them, so people wouldn't think they were some kind of just poisonous deadly nightshade or something. I don't know.
Simpler times.
Yes.
It's a potato. Oh, you're trying to kill me.
Yeah.
Well, aren't they supposed to be toxic if they're not cooked or something? Because of the
Yes. Yeah.
I think a little bit in the skin only, though. So if you peel them, it doesn't matter.
I remember
they are part of the nightshade.
Who's gonna eat a raw potato though? Come on.
I remember reading a story of a family that, probably a bit grim for this, but they were storing potatoes in their root cellar, so a dark cellar with no windows. Unfortunately, the potatoes that they were storing rotted, and of course that gives off a noxious gas, and it just basically some family members went down to do something, didn't come back up, so another family member went down, they didn't come back up, and it wasn't until a few days later that the family was discovered down in the root cellar.
Or maybe they just liked it.
Possibly.
Wait, why were they in the root cellar?
Because the rotting potatoes gave off
there was a silo that happened in like some kind of silo, and I don't remember. I think it was filled with, did it have manure in it or something? And it was like one person succumbed to these like gases from the manure trapped in the silo, and then another person tried to save them and they died too and stuff from like, I guess it was a manure silo.
Well,
there's actually I was just double checking that I remembered that correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And if you
Sorry,
do,
2007, gas from manure pit kills 5 on dairy farm.
yeah, and there's also a search for rotting potatoes can kill you.
Things you learn, I guess.
Yes, the very exciting conversations.
Must remember to check my cupboard where I keep my potatoes in the dark.
Yes, Russian girl. This is according to the Daily Mail, so pinch of salt and all that. Russian girl 8 orphaned after entire family is wiped out by deadly gas caused by rotting potatoes in the cellar. And this was in 2013.
Wow.
But that's yeah, that's gross. Well, and just the apathy of like not noticing that somebody just disappeared when they went to the basement or the cellar.
Well, it's this is according to the article, obviously. Her father, respected law professor, name that I can't quite pronounce, was first to enter the cellar. Not realizing the potatoes had become seriously rotten, he fainted from the noxious fumes and soon after died, say police. When he failed to reappear, his worried wife, another name I can't pronounce, went to look for him in the dark and was also overcome by the poisonous gas. Next, the couple's 18-year-old son went in search for his parents. Same thing.
So it's either a very psychopathic 8-year-old girl that has found the perfect crime and blamed it on potatoes.
That is the perfect crime.
It's a very tragic event.
It does help to be 8 years old.
Well, that would get away. You would get away with a lot, I would imagine. If I had a bit of grief with my parents when I was 8 and I blamed it on some rotten potatoes, I think I could swing that.
Yeah, but if you were like, I don't know, 28 or something, people might be a little more suspicious. And they just see you fighting in town or something.
I think we've digressed.
Yeah, they actually apparently do. Potatoes contain toxic compounds known as glycoalkaloids. I think that's how you pronounce that. Of which, oh well, there's another couple of unpronounceable words there.
So can we do like a wish list thing for IMVU then?
Oh, for sure, definitely. And so write it down because I don't know. You email it to me.
Yeah, we'll get right on that.
If it's your wish list, like you must not be wishing very hard for it if you don't send me an email.
Well, I definitely want the biggest thing is the Cal 3D exporter for anything other than I think 2012 or something, not crashing.
I don't think anyone's going to work on the Cal 3D exporter.
Not with FBX.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there isn't anybody at IMVU that works on it. The last time they were updated, they hired a contractor to do the work, and I don't think that contractor is currently available. Like, you know, these people, sometimes they get a job with a company where they're forbidden to do any sort of outside work that's remotely related. So I think that's what's happened. So even if they wanted to update them, they don't have, like, the guy anymore.
So how do we get past the fact that the Cal 3D exporter crashes every time I try and deselect something from the skeleton selection?
Well, use FBX.
Yeah, it's probably best. Yeah, I mean, it's going to crash it's going to crash right now relative to what's being developed. But if
Crasher's gonna crash.
if Code Rodent is able to do what he was doing, then it's going to be worth sticking with the FBX stuff, because that's so much easier to work with than the Cal 3D for that particular type of thing where you are only exporting specific bones or bone chains, because that's
Okay,
what
so
he was working on.
So I haven't seen any examples yet of how Cal 3D exports animation, and I have no idea, and I don't really want to try it myself because I'm stuck in my ways, and I know
You mean
how
FBX animation with
how
FBX?
FBX.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
how does it? I don't know how it works. I haven't got a clue which bits I'm supposed to be selecting. Do I need to select things? Will it just export everything?
You know, you have terrible timing because Polly has done a little bit of testing with it and she's just left though.
Hmm.
But I think that we're going to next week get Code Rodent in here,
Yes.
and that will be really good. He can make a little list, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
Is
He
he like
might be using
Santa?
the project soon, but
Is he like Santa Claus? He's
he
making a
is.
list.
He is
he
actually.
pretty much is.
Yes,
Yeah, he is.
yeah, he is.
Mm. I hope I'm going to be on the good list.
Yeah, well, you got to play your cards right, I guess.
Mm.
You just have to think what appeals to an engineer.
And that's a
Well,
challenge. That's what you are asking for is the challenge. That's
that's it.
Yeah.
That's easy. I just have to give him a puzzle.
yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because he was. I mean, this is relative to the Blender stuff again, because obviously that was the first thing that they started working on. But he was using Blender as a test bed for the idea of being able to selectively export, import certain elements of the avatar. So you could, as with the example that you mentioned early on with the wave, if you just did that and you only wanted a wave, you could export just the bones associated with the wave. And when you brought that into IMVU, it would only override the bones that you had specifically imported. So the rest of the avatar would be doing whatever it is that it does.
Yeah. I mean, that in itself, I didn't actually realize how powerful that was back in the day.
No.
But you can actually make some really nice stuff just exporting certain parts of the body. And I have had good success making parts of the body, so you can actually make your own blended, unique body animations just from mixing certain body bones yourself and just triggering multiple triggers to make something totally unique. So we need these features. I mean, the fact that it sort of just crashes 3ds Max is kind of unacceptable at the moment. And yes, there is a workaround, just hacking the file, but that's not ideal.
So I'm going to try to get Code Rodent in to the chat on Monday. I feel like Friday is waiting too long because sooner or later he's going to be removed from this project, and then I don't know. So if you can come back Monday to tell him these things.
Yep. Open invitation to come back on.
Ask me again on Monday.
Yes. Yeah.
Ask me again on Monday.
Well, I think I sent you an invite like maybe a half hour ago or something.
Yeah, I got something, and I got a couple of emails, and that's good. I'll check again on Monday, though.
I'll try to remind you or something.
Good.
Well, we've been going for an hour and 20 odd minutes, so I guess we can probably call it a night there.
Yeah, it's not like we're showing people how to do anything, so.
Well, I mean, this was quite an interesting conversation about FBX being a creator, and all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
really good because we really had a focus on Blender, and it's good to talk about 3D Studio Max a little bit since that is what most creators meshers are using
yes. And
so
say that again.
so far.
So far, well, I mean, you know, there's the SketchUp stuff that would be interesting to take a look at, and DAS 3D, which we were looking at in the last stream. So it would be interesting to have those discussed in terms of what people are doing for that and whether they're using the FBX stuff.
Well, we need to find a SketchUp user though. Like that's what we need, and that person can come and share their screen and show code rodent and
Yeah.
Otherwise, we mostly just have the Pat Fenn Ken just with his little project, but he's not really a 3D mesher. He's just leading the project. That's all. I mean, that's all. But
Yeah.
he's just
I
leading
don't know anyone, but I'm sure it's possible. There must be someone out there.
Oh, there are. It's just whether they want to go public, I guess.
Yeah, I've reached out to people and I haven't. I mean, some people who wanted to be beta testers didn't want to get, I think, maybe as involved. Like, yeah, I want to try the new thing, but I don't really want to participate back and forth with you, or have to download the client from another place than the regular place, or I don't know.
Well, I mean, regards SketchUp itself, there's, it's not as if there aren't a lot of users that have asked about SketchUp support in the past. So there is definitely, or there are definitely people that use or attempt to use SketchUp, shall we say, for IMVU content creating. And the new, with FBX, I mean, obviously we're not talking about SketchUp Make, we're talking about SketchUp, the paid one, because obviously you can't use SketchUp Make for commercial gain.
But I think that's the part of the problem is that people are asking about SketchUp, but they don't actually have the full professional version, and they are using Make or something, and use some kind of a plugin to export their files, and then they can convert it into another program and then get it into IMVU. And probably they aren't going to want to come forward and try to get help with that, because they would be like showing us how first of all, they'd be showing us how they cheat the system. And second of all, I don't think the free version that you can just directly export the files, right?
You can, but it's to...
You can, yeah.
Yeah, it's to another couple of formats that you then have to sort of mess around with.
Yeah,
it is possible. It's workable. It's possible, and it's workable, and it's not that much of a hassle to do, relatively speaking. But you
can't just say like, oh, we want the FBX thing to work, because that's not going to happen anyway, right?
Well,
I'm saying.
Oh, with SketchUp Make, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not going to happen, not because it can't happen, but because of the license restrictions with using SketchUp Make. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no one that might want the exporter, because if the exporter is available, then, I mean, because if you think, because it's just another tool at the end of the day, another plugin that can be used with SketchUp. So people that are already using SketchUp already have the full version of SketchUp. They can use SketchUp to produce content for, because obviously people might have SketchUp for all sorts of other reasons.
Well, we just haven't found anyone who's expressed any interest in beta testing that has the professional version. So
I don't actually know anyone that uses SketchUp.
Well, I've over the years I've had a lot of people inquiring about SketchUp because it's when you mention Blender, they say, well, what about SketchUp? Because it's just an alternative to 3D Studio Max. So it's been asked about quite a lot, but yeah, I guess what most people are doing is, if they are using SketchUp, because SketchUp didn't have the Cal 3D exporter, they were doing what you do with XSI. They were doing a similar thing where they're creating whatever it is that they're creating and then exporting it so that they can get it into something else to work with.
Yeah.
But, people ask about DAZ 3D as well, which we were discussing in the previous stream. And Marvelous Designer. What were the ones that you mentioned, Jinx? Hexagon and...
Oh, yeah, Hexagon and Carrera. So
but
those are all three of those, Hexagon, Carrera, and DAZ 3D are all DAZ 3D.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But, people do ask about them because obviously they do have... the impression I get is that people ask about DAZ 3D in particular because it already comes with an absolute ton of content, but it has a similar sort of license restriction that SketchUp Make has, that you can use it for content creation, but you can't use any of the content that comes with the application. You have to make your own unique content.
And which for which DAZ 3D is going to be fairly limited, to be honest, because isn't it sort of based on near enough things that you're encouraged to download or buy or whatever, and then change.
Yeah.
So...
That's why we needed somebody that because I did bring... Have I got DAZ open? Yeah, I've got DAZ open. I don't know if you're watching the live, the actual stream itself.
I'm
but
personally not, because I don't have any links to it or whatever.
Not to worry. But I've just got DAZ.
Stream?
Didn't we give the...
What madness is this?
Yeah. If you just go twitch.tv/catsbits, that's the
That means you didn't see any of Polly's dialogue.
No, I didn't. No.
Who didn't think to do that?
Me for one.
No.
All of us,
All
basically.
of us, yeah. We were so excited at getting somebody else on.
He took us by
Sorry,
surprise.
what was it? Cats TV,
Bits. No? Cats Bits.
With a K.
With a K. KATSBITS.
He'll probably go to like Cat's Bits with a C, and it'll be like a cam girl.
And then I'll get cats, or well, maybe it's not, but no, I can actually see that studio now.
Yeah, so what you're looking at on screen now is a wonky stool. We called it the wonky stool, but it's basically a tutorial. When I was trying to helping the IMVU staffers get to grips with Blender, we created this wonky stool, and that is what you can see on screen in terms of that is the wonky stool imported into DAZ. And it obviously understands the shapes that are involved in terms of the meshes. It's also got the node structure of the furniture item, which are the crosshairs that you'll eventually see when it updates the stream. There's about a 10 or 15 second delay, I guess. So DAZ does understand, and it keeps the hierarchy as well, which is probably the more critical thing, actually, is keeping the hierarchy. But it understands all of that. It brings it all in. The scale is teeny tiny compared to IMVU, which we're kind of used to really these days. But so in theory, it should be possible to create some content using DAS 3D because it understands the structure. I mean, this is just a furniture item, a simple one. It understands the basic structure of the furniture item. So in theory, it should be possible to make at least basic stuff and export it to FBX, which I think DAS does do. I think we checked that.
I've never used DAS. I mean, obviously I know about it, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah, so it exports to FBX, but this is, I mean, all of this stuff, like you talking about XSI, discussing SketchUp, discussing DAS, all the other applications, these kinds of discussions need to be had so we can determine what is possible and what isn't possible. But people, there doesn't seem to be the people, as Jinx was saying, just willing is probably not the right word, but they're reluctant to come forward and have a chat about this stuff so that we can figure out what's what.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because if IMVU can get the FBX stuff nailed down, it's as I was saying to the FBX team when they were working on the Blender stuff, that if they can get it nailed down, you in theory can import, export, work with any application that exports FBX files.
You would think so, but as I said earlier on with the XSI experiment that I had,
yes,
just was not happy. But yeah, I'm just looking at your screen. It's quite interesting to see that you're using the capture in picture.
So what you might want to try to do, Matt, is open up those FBX files that are in the FBX section of the Creator Education Center. And let me see if I could link to those. You might be able to open those and then start with those and see if those just work from soft image, if that makes any sense. Like open up the 3D Studio Max one in soft image, like open the FBX up and then see if that exports properly.
Ordinarily, I'd be happy to do that, but I think I'm too set in my ways.
Hang on.
I'm quite happy using the Cal 3D. I don't know. I know you two are like a real ambassador for the FBX, but what I know and what the limitations that I know and what I can do with IMVU over the 10 years that I've learned how to use IMVU, I've learned through doing the Cal 3D, and for me, I'm unlikely to change right now.
Well, it's just that if you were to try those files and see if it works when you use those files, that would be really helpful for the FBX team.
For you, I will give it a go for you.
Okay.
Oh, yes, just import them, see what happens when I mean, this is the thing. It's like the FBX stuff isn't forcing people to do things in a particular way, because obviously I think IMVU have made it clear that they're not getting rid of Cal 3D, they're just augmenting it with FBX. But as we've just been discussing, the problem is that for FBX to be valuable, for want of a better word, for it to be valuable, it needs to be tested thoroughly, in the sense that, so as Jinx was saying, downloading the starter files, the files that are available, they're all in FBX format or whatever it is that they're, the formats that are available. If they're FBX, just importing those into XSI just to see what it's doing, and then using that data so that they have a data point to, so it's I've got it on the screen now, creator.imvu.com, github.com/index.php/fbx-import/. But, because that's the thing that's missing, is that they have a limited pool of people just to be able to even test the FBX files just to see what they do.
Yeah, I noticed that it doesn't say and XSI, which is what I use. So
Yeah,
perhaps I should provide a little bit of testing so you can try it out, and maybe get it working with XSI as well, because that, for me, XSI is my baby. So
oh yeah,
We could
yeah,
even make a set of starter files, and we could have a QA engineer check them out and possibly add those to the list on that page.
I will say though, the scaling for IMVU is just massively crazy.
monstrous. Yes.
Just, it's, what on earth was someone thinking, making something so big?
Yeah.
If I import files into XSI, the IMVU files, I actually have to change the display options so that I can clip.
Yes. Yeah.
It clips the plane.
Yeah.
It is just ridiculous. I see absolutely nothing
Yeah.
until I change the plane so that it clips.
Yeah. They're
to
monstrous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But hey, we're used to it now. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
going to change in 10 years. So.
Well, I think that first person to ever work on the IMVU avatars is not actually a 3D modeler anymore.
I'm not certain if he had issues with the size of something, but yeah, it's certainly unique. That's all I will say. That's the only thing that I found with IMVU is just the scale of things is just ridiculous. But you'll learn to get past that, I think.
Yeah.
On and the comment that I made earlier on you using the picture and capture.
Oh right, yes. Sorry, what was that? What were you asking?
You're using picture and capture.
Yeah.
If you go back to your DAS studio.
Yeah.
I can notice you're using capture.1.setting and picture.1. In the 10 years or more that I've used IMVU, I've never used those. So don't use those. You don't need them.
That's true. IMVU will just create a default spot for them.
You need to use them. They're just complicated. Just make a seat and a handle. That's fine.
I agree with that.
For capture and picture. Oh right, no, yeah, you couldn't do that with that's probably a hangover from the early days of working with Blender, because you couldn't do that. You had to export a complete set, otherwise it wouldn't work. That's so everything that you see on screen will be relative to that, but it doesn't specifically. I mean, it doesn't specifically complicate things for me, because they are positional devices rather than specific to actually getting something functional, at least these days. So they are there so that you can see. Let me just open up it'll be easier to do it this way.
I tried using them, and then I thought, well, what am I actually doing?
I mean, yes, the point you're making is valid from the point of view of somebody like yourself that knows about the capture picture and the way that everything is set up. From the point of view of the reason why they are in the scene, they are just basically positional devices, but they are you could argue they're a leftover from the earlier days of working all this stuff out with Blender, because you couldn't, or it wouldn't export a properly functional skeleton, because you weren't doing just a mesh replacement So if you didn't have the capture in picture, it wouldn't export the skeleton properly. It would just break.
Wow.
And that will be because of it. That's not because of the Cal 3D stuff that IMVU's doing. It'll be because of the export process from Blender using the old Cal 3D exporter.
I think somebody has hardwired the fact that you need a capture in picture
Possibly.
into the Cal 3D exporter. But for any Max users, you don't need to use them. Just ignore them. Just IMVU will make their own, and it'll position things correctly for you. So that's a little headache.
I mean, in terms of what you see on screen, they're basically positional devices, so that when you're obviously positioning your furniture item, you know where the avatars will stand when they interact with one another.
It's near enough if somebody wants to shake your hand when you do like a co-op animation. If somebody if somebody right mouses your avatar and clicks one of the co-op animations, then it needs to know the distance away, and that's what the picture in stander is. But
yes.
But you don't need it. You don't need it in Max. You can just forget any of that. I mean, it is kind of useful if you want to not allow somebody to do a rugby tackle on you. You can just sort of move it right away off screen, and then, or I've seen people do things where they'll just shake in midair because they have got the picture and whatever. But yeah, you don't need it in Max.
Interesting.
So I'm looking at Blender, and I'm just thinking I really do not want to have to learn this right now. But obviously, it makes sense to you.
Yes, for me it does. Yeah.
Mm.
But of course, I mean, within the context of FBX, it makes a lot of sense because it's not an application that costs $3,500 or however.
Oh yeah,
much,
yeah.
you know, so
No, I totally appreciate that.
Well, I'm gonna go make my dinner now, so
yeah. Well, I shall stop streaming, and thanks for dropping by Second Harvest. That was quite interesting conversation.
No
yeah,
problem.
it's great.
Been interesting. Oh, and I'm way past my bedtime, but that just means that I'm gonna sleep tonight.
Yeah. All right.
Possibly.
Hopefully, we shall speak to you again on Monday. Not
Which is
forcing your
probably
hand at all.
Is that Tuesday your time though?
Oh
I
yes,
don't
it'll
know.
be Tuesday our time. Yes.
Midnight.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
See how
All
we
right.
go.
We'll speak to you soon.
So yeah, it's been fun, guys. So,
Yep.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right, bye.